Hi, I don't normally do YouTube videos, but this one I think is quite important, so I make an exception here. Regarding these, these are hanging Icicle LED Christmas lights that my wife has just bought from eBay. There's quite a lot of these being sold this year, it would appear. They have, there's 8 of these little tubes of flashing LEDs, and there's a little cable that comes from them, the little connector, a little small box like that, and then into your ordinary 13 amp plug. If you've got a set of these that you've bought recently that have this little white box and look like this, then I strongly advise you, do not use them. There are many things that are unsafe with them. I'll explain in a bit more detail in a minute, but these are a serious electric shock and fire risk. So what's actually wrong with these things? Right, well I'm an electronics engineer, so when I see sort of cheap products like this come in from China, I'm always suspicious, and 9 times out of 10 they do turn out to have safety issues and be a pile of crap. This one is probably the worst I've ever seen, and I'll go into the reasons for that. Firstly, first thing to note is that this little power supply box, and indeed the tubes themselves and the product, there's no manufacturer's mark on it, there's no safety approval stickers, there's absolutely nothing, not even a serial number on it, nothing there at all, which sort of rings alarm bells. You know, any product like this should be built to, you know, a number of different safety standards, and the appropriate safety standard marks would be on them. You'd expect to see, for example, a CE mark on here, and none of that is present. First major concern with them is the little power supply box itself. Suspiciously light. That's the first thing that that strikes you as unusual with it. You've got your ordinary 13 amp plug here straight into the mains, which comes straight into this little box. First major problem is that you need no tools to undo that box. You can just pop the lid straight off, and then you're straight into, essentially, if this is plugged in, live mains. So, you know, if you've got kids or whatever, and you know, they pick this up and pop it open in their hand, you know, the consequences don't bear thinking about. Secondly, the type of power supply that this little board is a capacitive power supply. It's basically, there's no isolation from the mains. So the mains is going into here. You get I think this one's 5 volt output on this tiny little thin single insulated wire here. But it's essentially, it isn't isolated from the mains as it would be with a with a proper power supply here, and I'll demonstrate that in the next shot. Okay, so at the far end of these, I have this chain of 8 lights. Is a little female connector here, which is obviously intended for daisy chaining together more than one set of these. And you can see from this connector that the actual mating parts of the connector, the actual electrical contacts, are quite easily touchable. You can get your finger, even my sort of middle finger there, I can get in there and I can touch those contacts with no problem at all. There's no kind of cap or anything on this. This is how it comes out of the packet. So, you know, if you had these up, sort of, hanging in your Christmas tree or whatever, you know, your sort of metallic tinsel on the tree or whatever could touch that. You know, people's fingers could get in there. There's no protection whatsoever. And as I'll demonstrate in a moment, when this thing is connected up, because of the nature of the type of non-isolated power supply that's been used, you'll see that that this goes live when these are on. In the next shot I'll demonstrate that. Okay, so what we have here is our set of these lights. The power supply here is just plugged into ordinary wall socket, 240 volt wall socket, and this little daisy chain connector here, I've on the exposed connection there, I've just connected one of these probes. That's connected to a digital meter set to read AC voltage. At the moment it's just reading a very small voltage, just 2.4 volts, which is just a sort of a stray reading. So it really sort of doesn't mean anything. The other side of that meter is connected through my test block here to mains earth. So essentially we're looking at the voltage between the earth, which is the potential you'd be at, you know, standing on the ground or in contact with earth metalwork or whatever, and this connection. So Just turn the light on to make that easier to see. We'll switch these lights on. See they're now operating, and you'll see there now, I'll just get rid of that reflection, you'll see that you've got full mains voltage, nearly 250 volts on that pin of that connector. Absolutely bloody lethal. Other things that are wrong with this, if you actually take a look at the plug on this, sticker on it says fitted with 13 amp fuse. Well, yeah, I believe that. Let's have a look. And sure enough, that plug is fitted with a 13 amp fuse. Well, that's way too high for the cable on this unit, which you can see is also a problem. Obviously in UK, indeed most European countries, we use blue and brown for the neutral and live. You see this has two black wires, absolutely tiny, probably less than 0.5 square millimeters. So absolute maximum fuse size you'd have on that would be 3 amp, and indeed cable that small shouldn't have been used on a commercial product like this. So that's bad. The box itself, the fall apart box, has no kind of strain relief on it, so the thing just rattles about. The wires inside are just soldered onto the board, so a good pull on that cable, there's a very good chance that your live mains connections here could just whip straight out of the case and then just be hanging about for anyone to grab hold of. So again, that's bad. Just everything about the quality of the construction of this is it's shocking. Really a non-isolated power supply, capacitive power supply like this should not be used for a product like this. Capacitive power supply should have the main capacitor, which is this red piece here, should be what's known as a Class X capacitor. And Class X capacitors generally have all sorts of ratings and approvals marks all over them. Again, this one has nothing, so I would seriously doubt that is actually a Class X rated capacitor. So if this capacitor failed short circuit, then essentially the full mains would go down to these lights, and that anything could happen. That something's likely to fry, and if it's not a lucky day, it could be your house. There's no input protection on this. The mains literally go straight into the capacitor. I mean, at the very least, you'd normally include a fusible resistor, just to give something chance to actually fail if the capacitor goes short. And that's not been done. Yeah, absolutely dreadful, that power supply. Obviously the quality of this wiring that's actually between all of these tubes, yeah, it's fine for sort of 5 volts that it's normally handling, but say the fact that it's not isolated means essentially that's got full mains potential on it, and if that cable insulation rating is anywhere near to 250 volts, then monkeys will fly out of my ass. That is just simply not the case. So all in all, that is an absolute catalogue of disasters. So it's a serious shock risk because of the non-isolated supply. So that's probably the major issue with it. The fact that it just pulls straight out of the box, that you've got this connection at the end here that you can just take live mains from. It's quite shocking. It's also it's a fire risk because it doesn't have proper protection on here. So I just would say again, I urge you, if you've bought these and they have this little white box, coming from a short lead from the 13 amp plug, if they're this style, then please don't use them. They are not safe. I know there are some other, I had a look on eBay, there are some other ones floating about which appear to be of a better standard. They appear to have a proper power supply and sort of little box with a sort of a switch where you can select different operation modes and so forth, and they probably appear to be of a better standard, although I wouldn't trust anything coming out of China for a low price on eBay. But these particular ones, absolutely lethal, and if you haven't, please either send them back to where you got them from, get a refund, or just sling them in the bin. Ain't worth really taking the risk.